Here a doe is walking from west to east, stops to check my trail out. I believe it's only ground disturbance. She checks it out for a minute or two, does not go on alert, and then continues on the path she was originally on. Back here again on October 29th, a doe and her 2 fawns have picked up my trail in. I believe it's only ground disturbance because she continues right on down the trail, checking it out once in a while. She's not concerned, she's not on alert, and she ends up walking right up to my stand. She ends up right under my stand with her 2 fawns, and then turns to head straight into the bedding area, presenting me with a beautiful broadside shot. A couple of hours later, this buck is headed east to west and crosses my trail with no notice at all. Later on that day, a doe and a fawn crossed my trail without taking any notice at all. A while later, a doe with her 2 fawns picks up the ground disturbance again. She's checking it out. A buck steps out into the trail, and he will begin to follow her. And of course, he doesn't have a care in the world. He doesn't notice my scent trail. He's just interested in that licking branch. And she just continues on her way in the direction she was originally going. November 1st in the morning, I spotted this buck. He was running across the grass field, got to my trail, and used it to walk along without noticing any scent at all until he turned on the next trail. November 13th in the morning, this deer comes over from my neighbor's property through the grass and then takes my trail on down to a food plot and happens to walk right up underneath my grandson. There's the deer, and that's my grandson. You can barely see him up at the upper left, sitting in that giant oak tree. A while later, a doe and a fawn come out of the bedding area to my left, and they make their way down my trail in without a bit of concern. And they too end up in the food plot my grandson was watching. Next morning, I'm in the same stand. A doe crosses my trail in without noticing a thing.
Keeps looking back that way, like, where are the rest of you?
A little later in the morning, a buck comes from the east, gets on my trail, and walks down it without a care in the world. That evening, a doe comes across the grass field, comes up to my trail, walks down it towards the south. She does sense a little ground disturbance, I think, but that doesn't bother her. She just continues on her way all the way down the trail.
Maybe.
Next morning, I put my grandson, Maingan, in that stand, and he killed this buck that was with another buck just a few yards away from that trail. November 26th, back in that same stand. This is the mouth of the trail, about 7 or 8 yards from my stand, with a doe walking across it without a care in the world.
They're all fascinated with my trail end, but they don't know what it is.
So later on, here's a doe and 2 fawns, and another doe comes in, and they're all interested in my scent, but they don't know what it is. This is just ground disturbance. In fact, this one doe stops to work a licking branch. Later on, a pretty little 2.5-year-old 10-point came over from my neighbors to the west, steps into the trail, turns, and walks all the way down my trail and past my game camera, which is about 100 yards away.